Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning to participants from the other parts of the world. I hope you are safe wherever you are right now. I am Eli Altamarino from SOS Children's Villages Philippines, and I welcome you all to the virtual forum on COVID-19 response towards the alternative care of children in Southeast Asia. Just some house rules before we start. First, kindly make sure that you type your display name in this format: acronym or short name of your organization, dash your name. For example, SOS dash Eli Altamarino. You can go to the Participants tab and then click your name and choose Rename. You may use the Q&A box to send in your questions, and we will have our discussants reply to them during the open forum. If you wish to comment or share something, you may use the chat box for that. Please note that we have children and young people in the webinar room, so let us be mindful of our language and actions. Since we are doing this virtually, please bear with us with any unexpected technical interruptions. We are fortunate to have here with us some of the most passionate child's rights and alternative care advocates from all over Southeast Asia, from government agencies, civil society groups, media, academe, donors and partners, and our colleagues from SOS and various networks. We also have here with us the star of this forum, some of the children and young people from the different care settings. Whether as speakers or as participants, we all welcome you here. To officially open the forum and to give us a background on our regional response to the pandemic, may we call on the Deputy Chief Operating Officer and International Director Asia of SOS Children's Villages International, Ms. Shubha Murthy. Ms. Murthy has been serving in the field of alternative care for 30 years to improve the well-being of thousands of orphan children in the region and beyond. She has worked extensively in child's rights and protection, child care and development, participatory community development, post-conflict displacement, emergency response, rehabilitation, negotiations with the government, policy framework, and country programs in Asia, Eastern and Southern Africa, and parts of Latin America. She has bestowed the highest civilian honor, Queen's Medal, from the Royal Government of Cambodia, Third-Class Labor Medal by the Government of Laos, Friendship Badge by the Government of Vietnam, for her contribution in the field of childcare. Let's all welcome Ms. Murthy.
Thank you very much. And I would like to extend my warm welcome to each and every person who has joined in this webinar today. We are very, very happy that we have been able to be part of this webinar with the participation of a lot of people from the different governments and other organizations, and most of all our young people who are participating and also telling us what difficulties and challenges they face, and also they give us solutions, sometimes out of the box, which they are able to see, and we are extremely grateful for that. I see this forum as a starting point where we are making an attempt to bring all the different stakeholders together so that in future we are able to work together and find solutions to what we need to be doing going forward. So due to the COVID-19, the need for the care of children and youngsters, as all of us have experienced, has increased manyfold. But what we do is also changing tremendously, and what we need to do on the ground also poses huge challenges. And these changes I have experienced personally because I was in Vietnam on the ground, visiting the programs in Vietnam and spending more than 4.5 months waiting for a flight to return home. And this also gave me the opportunity to spend a lot of time with our young people, with our caregivers, with the core care co-workers. And based on what I heard and what I experienced from Vietnam and also many other countries with whom I have been in contact over the last few months, I would classify the challenges that we face today broadly into two categories. The first category is the external influence, or what I call the contact. And this contact with the external world has reduced a lot because children and youngsters are not able to go to school. They are not able to go to the university. They have no contact with other children. They don't have no contact with peers. And it is the same for all our young people as well as for our caregivers. The caregivers are not able to go out. So yes, we have to maintain social distance and we have to do all these things for the safety of our people. But this standstill or a stalemate, as I would say, is confining people to their small environments, whether good or bad is different. But this is posing a huge emotional challenge for our people. And this challenge also brings with it a lot of insecurity and stress for the youngsters, especially those who are on the verge of completing their university. They are all losing 1 year of education, and they probably don't know, what kind of job market they are entering into. And all agencies and ILOs and the UN and all these agencies are giving figures which are astounding. And if we look at only Asia, we are talking about millions. We are talking about millions of young people, and these numbers are mind-boggling. They're talking about 60 million young people who will be looking for a job in the job market. And similarly, the caregivers, they are facing a very different challenge, and also a very difficult challenge of how to keep the young people and youngsters fully engaged. Because the children under our care, especially in alternative forms of care, whether it is in SOS Children's Villages or other forms of care, many of them are already coming from a very disadvantaged background. And they do have difficulties and challenges which we are trying to help them with. And this is only getting more and more accentuated because there are no outlets. There are no outlets in the form of school. There are no outlets, or there are very limited outlets in the form of physical activity or games and social interactions, which is also posing a larger challenge in that sense. The second category that I see is really the young people who are in the alternative care. It's very visible that the number of young people is increasing, and these are young people whom the society would actually label them as youngsters who have failed or failed youngsters, because they are losing jobs, they cannot pay their rent, they are really on a survival mode. And it has become an issue, very specially making it difficult for these youngsters who do not have a family care like we conventionally know, in Asia, where we talk about a support system, a normal support system, where a family supports at times of adverse needs. And this is really not available in that conventional, traditional sense. And these young people have to step out of the alternative care settings. They have to make their own life. And we all know that in most places, at the age of 18, the young people are expected to be fully independent and be able to take care of themselves. And a lot of care settings does not offer any kind of assistance after this age. And these are all putting a lot of pressure on also these youngsters. And within SOS Children's Villages, I can say that a number of young people have returned. They are all returning, asking for assistance. And the assistance is basically in three areas. One is clearly an emotional support, a support which they want, they need at this adverse times, where there is somebody telling them that things will get better, or we can do this together, we are going to fight it out, that kind of emotional support, somebody whom they can turn to, a family which gives them this. And the second area that they are looking at is reskilling, to find skills which in current times makes it possible for them to have a gainful employment. Again, this is not so simple, because we also heard this last week. We had also another seminar where we had a lot of young people from different countries who shared the kind of uncertain future that they are looking at, and they're worried, they're concerned. Especially all those young people who were employed in the hospitality industry. Today, this industry has come to a standstill. Tourism is dead in most of the places. Things are closed. These youngsters know nothing else other than this kind of work that they were doing. So reskilling has become an essential thing, but this reskilling is also not easy, because one has to explore what kind of reskilling, and when this times of uncertainty, is very difficult to say that, okay, this is the skill that's going to give you an employment, because nobody is able to say, okay, which skill is going to give you an employment, barring the health and the security part. These are the only two areas which is coming out very clearly. And this is also causing, difficulties, as I said, emotional support, where they lose the confidence. So it's very important that we're able to give them this kind of confidence to face the world again. And so reskilling becomes very important. And the last thing that I've seen is that a certain kind of financial assistance which is needed for a certain period of time, so that they can do this. But it's an established fact that financial provisions for care as such is a low priority for majority of the governments. And during a pandemic, it is, more and more difficult, because the governments also have to put a lot of money on the health and security. So they are putting a lot of money in those areas. So all this is a combination, and it gets compounded more and more for our young people and caregivers. And the other aspect of it, the other side of the coin, is because of the economic downturn in most of the Asian countries, private funds are also drying up, and it is becoming less and less available. So I would say that our sector today is really, really on a crossroad. And at the same time, our program participants' numbers are increasing. Their needs are changing. And we need more and more resources. We need more financial resources. But the reality is that in the next 2 years or 3, I don't know, there is going to be certainly less money. But what we need to do is much more. So we need to find solutions. We need to look for a lot of things, how we are going to work around these things. And I don't have ready-made solutions where I say, okay, this is what we do and this is what we can get out of it. It's not a billiards table that we push one ball and this is going to fall in and we are going to make a score. But I think collectively together we need to find ways and means of addressing some of these challenges which I have just shared. Before I close, I just want to share with all of you what we have tried to do within SOS Children's Villages in the last few months, ever since COVID has hit us, is a few things. And I would like to go through this very quickly. It's not a very large presentation. May I please ask that this is shared? As you can see, it's a simple presentation where we talk about the impact we had on the programs working in 13 countries, 121 locations where we have alternative care programs reaching out to 967 communities and a total of 155,000 beneficiaries, 25,000 families, and the young people who are in our care, direct care, which is over 12,000, and also reaching out to the families where we are doing an indirect care for 89,566 beneficiaries, and also the number of people who are in small group homes, which is over 15,000 young people who are being reached out currently by the different programs that SOS is doing in these 13 countries in Asia. May I have this next slide, please? Yeah, this is something which is what was done as an immediate response within the region. One of the things that had helped us, is the emergency preparedness on which we were working for the last 4 or 5 years, which helped us a lot since people were already well trained and equipped to address emergency situations. This helped us tremendously, and we see this as something which other organizations could actually work on. And this enabled us to then be able to create task forces in all the 13 countries and locations comprising of 513 core care co-workers and staff members. And this also helped in bringing things together and addressing, and also going to the next step, which is preventive actions, which could be done with this group of people. Maybe go back to the previous slide, please. Yeah, and with the action number 3, which we were able to prevent proactive actions taken in prevention and limiting local movements, travels, and promoting virtual meetings, and which also led to a certain level of decision making which had to be done at the ground level, which we see as a very big advantage because this was absolute devaluation of authority. So every location was able to make these decisions, and they were much quicker and faster, and they were able to implement because they owned all these decisions. And the last 2 areas, which is related more to the infrastructure, where every infrastructure which was available in the different locations of 121 locations could all be used very effectively by restricting visitors, or even not having visitors and a complete ban on visitors, but trying to keep it under control. And also using a lot of these areas and the locations that we had for dissemination of information to sensitize people and bringing together. And this offered us the possibility to also continue with social distancing. The last 2 slides I would like to share with you is a few good practices. And one of them is, the relaxation room which we had for the core care co-workers, because they had to be on duty all the time. And so in some places we had this relaxation room where the core care co-workers could go and spend a day or 2 relaxing there, so that they are invigorated to take over the responsibilities after that. And this proved to be very effective, and it was highly appreciated. The other thing which was done is also providing, trauma healing virtually, where it was provided also at the community level, where the community organizer was also a member working on this with the team. And this kind of look, listen, and link principles were applied, where you look for people who had these kind of difficulties and trauma, and then listening to them and linking them to the right people so that they can come out of this. This is also proved for us to be very effective in a lot of countries, and this was also shared with a lot of other countries, and we were able to train quite a few countries within the region on this way of dealing with the issue. Next slide, please. The other thing I want to share is, and I want to really applaud these young people, we have this Generation Never Give Up network of care leavers in Sri Lanka who grouped together very quickly. And these are care leavers within Sri Lanka who came together to support other care leavers who needed immediate assistance or who were in a dire state by providing food, by providing emotional support. And SOS was facilitating this with all these young people. And I must really applaud these young people who showed a lot of maturity and also came up with very good ideas to be able to help each other. So this reinforces my belief that people, when they stay together, can help each other. And this unity and solidarity gives much more emotional strength than anything else to tide over such difficult times. And the last part is, of course, stockpiling. And because of the sheer number of children and young people that we had in every villages, that every location was able to stockpile, not only for the children in the alternative care, but also for families whom were supported through the family strengthening program of SOS. And here I also want to say thank you to a lot of people who helped us in the different governments where the families were linked with the government programs, and we were able to achieve much more through the government programs and what they were able to give on the ground and finding these programs. And there a lot of government people on the ground, people who were really working in the field, were of extreme importance. And I have a lot of respect, and I want to say thank you to every government, every person that was present and who was helping and standing together with us. Thank you very much. That is what I have as of now, and I'm very eager to listen to all the young people and the other panelists who are today going to be sharing their own experiences. And I look forward to listening to everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Shuba, for that very concise report on the SOS response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Truly, quality care is very important, especially at this time when many children are losing or at risk of losing parental care. So for this forum, we have three main agenda points. One is the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on children, youth, caregivers, and caregivers in alternative care. Two are the good practices and lessons learned in responding to and managing the COVID-19 crisis. And moving forward is alternative care in the new normal. So let's proceed to the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on children, youth, caregivers, and caregivers in alternative care settings. To share with us his experience in family-like care, please welcome Mr. Adi Sumena, a child from SOS Indonesia. Mr. Adi?
Hello. Okay. Hello everyone. Let me introduce myself. My name is Adi Somena and you can call me Adi. Right now I'm 17 years old. I'm representative from National Youth Coalition of SOS Indonesia. So today I want to share a presentation to all of you guys about our response to COVID-19 in our country. So next slide. The problem around us are the first about education. Children have many difficulties to get internet access to do distance learning or DL, such as unable to buy internet data, don't have gadget, unstable internet signal. Low capacity of main caregiver to accompany their children to do DL through online methods. Low skill of teachers to do DL through online methods. National educational curriculum is not yet modified to anticipate some challenges to do DL. Children tend to ignore learning process because there is not appropriate monitoring to do DL in the house. And culture and artistic subjects are not accommodated well in online methods such as dancing class, singing class, and etc. Next slide, please. So this is another problem about physical and mental health. Children with special needs face difficulties to get therapy session as usual. Children are born with low-condition situation because they have disrupt daily activities, so they tend to be anxious with the infection of COVID-19. And children under 5 years old are difficult to access basic vaccination program because many health facilities have limited capacity in doing public services during pandemic. And children and family living in the streets are also made more vulnerable by the current situation, exposed to risk of contagion due to their inability to self-isolate and lacking access to water and sanitation. They could easily transmit and or be affected by the virus. Next slide, please. And this is our hopes, our voices, and our recommendation. At the first, for education. We encourage government in all levels to do public education on responsible use of social media and a healthy internet for children and parents. We call the main caregivers to assist and to accompany children to do distance learning or DL in the houses. We encourage government to conduct DL process which should be more creative, responsible, inclusive for all children. And we encourage government to develop disability-friendly learning material, such as braille books, sign language, for educational program on national television network. And we urge government to have more effort in preventing cyberbullying by conducting public education and strengthening law enforcement that provide the channel for report and complaint. Next slide, please. And this is the other hopes for children. For physical and mental health, we encourage government to develop online therapy methods so children with special needs could access it properly. We call government in all efforts to provide psychosocial services for children which are accessible widely. And we urge government in all efforts to strengthen the capacity of health facilities to do routine program on basic vaccination during pandemic situation. And last, we suggest government in ASEAN to learn and to adopt each other regarding good practices from another country, such as how to respond to children issues during pandemic. Next slide, please. So this is about our action and our contribution in our country. So at the first about I'm actively participating in local children forum of West Java province government by creating public education for children regarding the COVID-19 issues. And in live webinar, we invite health experts to explain and deliver correct information on how to prevent COVID-19 in our daily life. And National Youth Coalition representative of SOS Indonesia have given recommendation to Director General of Social Rehabilitation, Ministry of Social-led campaign by Indonesia joining forces, 36 children representatives from 6 NGOs. Another things we have done are, we gave recommendation to National Children Forum and Ministry Women Empowerment and Child Protection, which were representative to the Mr. President, and which have held virtual meeting with Indonesian Child Protection Commission to explain about our issues and recommendation. So we hope that our voices will be heard and send many related ministry. And next slide, please. So this is the slide about our position for COVID-19 response. We insert children in all alternative care setting to get their right in this pandemic situation. We support government to run distance learning or DL program which should be accommodate and facilitate all condition, situation, and need of children. We appreciate government for social protection program during pandemic, so we encourage government to improve the implementation mechanic of social protection program, especially for children in all alternative care setting. So maybe that's maybe my presentation and share to all of you guys. Thank you so much for your kind attention, and let us watch the video of my brother from SOS Philippines under the kinship care program. Thank you.
Ako at si Kuya Tyron, isa kami sa mga nawalan ng mga magulang. Pero dahil sa programa ng SOS Children's Village na kinship care program, nabigyan kami ng isa pang pagkakataon na mabuhay kasamang aming nanay. Bago ang pandemic, nakapaglaro pa kami ng basketball, volleyball, nag-fellowship pa kami ng mga ka-churchmate namin. Pero, nang dahil sa pandemic, lahat ng iyon ay natigil, nawala ng trabaho si nanay. Sa ngayon po, ang pinagkakabalan po namin ay yung tulungan si nanay sa mga gawaing bahay, katulad ng pag-iigib, pagsasaing, paglalaba at marami pang iba.
Thank you, Mr. Adi. Let's now listen to the stories of our care leavers from Vietnam and Laos. Here with us is Mr. Lê Hoang Phong. Mr. Phong is a Sustainable Development Goals Advocate, a founding member of the Leadership Development Fellowship by Teach for Vietnam, and of European Forum Alpbach Scholar. His Global Water Citizen Exhibition initiative was recognized by the former Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, and the former President of Austria, Mr. Heinz Fischer, and was addressed at Congress Center Alpbach, Tyrol, Austria. Mr. Phong is also appointed as the Green Ambassador of Greenpoint, a leading sustainable development goals app that connects green living communities, encouraging people to integrate sustainability into their lifestyle. Over to you, Mr. Phong.
Thank you for your introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lê Hoang Phong. I am a California from SOS Vietnam, and thanks for SOS Vietnam, I have a second life. And today, I would like to share with you the impact of COVID-19 for the California in Vietnam. For your information, the total children in alternative care is 1,500,000 in Vietnam. And among of that, the youth unemployment during the COVID-19 from 15 to 24 years old is 9.9%. This is a very high rate number. And next slide, please. And the risk posed by the COVID-19 crisis to caregivers are enormous. We need to urgently to support and protect caregivers during the pandemic, because we also need to help them to finding the job when the crisis ends. And the difficulty in employment is the first one on the caregiver in Vietnam are facing, because there are no formal support in securing employment. For example, they do not have the sufficient financial resources. And during the quarantine time, the lack of transportation for them to go to the workplace. Therefore, many of the caregivers are facing to lose their income and limited of the work. Besides that, there's no specific program to support caregivers in the job seeking, and also the policy and the benefit in the working environment is cut down. Many of the caregivers in Vietnam losing job and income loss affecting to their earnings daily. Next slide, please. Next slide. And in terms of the lack of formal, we do not have the specific program to support the caregiver in job seeking, because this is very important for them to make ends meet. But the caregiver union not have been established yet to deliver the experience from the senior caregiver to the young caregiver. Therefore, the coordination and cooperation between vocational training institutions and enterprises are limited, and consequences to make the caregiver don't have enough money to pay for the housing. So next slide is the difficulty in the housing. For many caregivers, the COVID-19 crisis will mean limited money to pay for their house renting, and some of them falling into debt because they have to borrow money with the high rates to pay for the housing rental monthly, and we don't have the immediate affordable housing need from the caregiver network. So, and besides that, the policy in supporting for the caregiver who losing their rented house would stay together in the same house, not activate yet. So next slide, please. And because there are no financial aid policy or funds from the government or from the public to support the caregiver during the COVID-19 pandemic, so the housing market is very important for those who also losing their job and they don't have their money to pay for the house. So that's why the coordination between the orphanage center and the senior experience caregiver is very important. But in fact, they are not activated yet in this moment. So this is my recommendation for the situation. Next slide, please. For those youth in care, we should continue to improve the quality of education and vocational training to help them to cope with the situation being impacted by the COVID-19. And then we strengthen the career orientation activity for youth based on their individual style and their individual capacity to make the end meet suitable with the labor market demands. And last, for the recommendation for the youth in care is to create the relationship and coordination between those persons who are already live in the urban center with the employer to plan for the specific vocational training and recruitment program in the recommendation for the development. We should provide economic assistance, including cash transfers to low-income caregivers that will be first.
Excuse me, Mr. Fong. May we request to adjust the audio? We cannot hear you properly.
Can you hear me now?
I think that one is better.
Okay.
Thank you.
My recommendation for the caregiver is we should provide the economic assistance policy. For example, we should including cash transfer to the low-income caregiver that will be hit first and hardest to help them meet with the basic needs without resorting to borrow money with the high rates. And second, increasing the efforts to identify caregivers impacted by the COVID-19 and expanding network of extended local caregiver groups in order to improve and scale up support and protection of caregivers who are faced with increased uncertainty, risk, and vulnerability. Because in the long term, maybe if you don't have the policy to support the caregiver, their situation will be worse and they don't have much opportunity to gain their independent life. So next slide, please. And I would also like to present to you the International Caregivers Declaration on responding to the transnational needs of caregivers amid COVID-19 and beyond. These were developed by caregivers from across the globe this June under the guidance of the organizing committee of the first International Caregivers Asia, and that is Untitled Care India, as a Children Village International Office Asia, Kinder's Perspective in the Netherlands, and the University of Hildesheim in Germany. As you can see here, the declaration consists of 11 key recommendations around financial security, housing, education, employability, psychosocial support, health policy reform, participation, social network, inclusion, and social protection. These recommendations are made to governments and other stakeholders to ensure that caregivers feel supported during the current pandemic, and that issues affecting children and youth from alternative care settings globally are addressed. I request all of you to support us by implementing these recommendations and incorporating these into your policy and partners. So that's in my presentation. And here, I would like to introduce Ms. Papao, and let's listen to her experience. Thank you.
สบายดีข้าพเจ้าซื้อป่าเป้าเนาะมื้อนี้จะมาเล่าผลกระทบเกี่ยวกับพยาธิโควิด 2019 ใน2 เดือนที่ผ่านมาที่ข้าพเจ้าได้รับเนาะก็คือยุ่งยากพอสมควรในการใช้ชีวิตคือข้าพเจ้าจะบ่ได้ออกจากบ้านแต่จะมีการกักตัวเองอยู่ให้ข้าพเจ้าบ่ได้ไปเวียกก็คือว่าเฮามีการพักเวียกในกรณีนี้ก็คือเฮาก็เฮ็ดเวียกอยู่บ้านนั่นแหละเฮ็ดให้ข้าพเจ้ารู้เลยว่าการมีเงินเก็บนี่เป็นสิ่งที่สำคัญเนาะเพื่อเวลายามวิกฤตที่ฉุกเฉินแบบนี้เฮาก็ควรประหยัดอดออมการใช้สอยในยามจำเป็นในชีวิตของเฮาแล้วก็อันที่2มานี่มันก็ยุ่งยากในการเดินทางก็คือเฮาจะบ่ได้ออกไปข้างนอกเนาะพบปะหมู่คู่จะได้อยู่บ้านซึ่งมันก็เฮ็ดให้เฮารู้จักคำว่าเศรษฐกิจพอเพียงมันเป็นแนวใดโดยจะบ่มีการใช้จ่ายฟุ่มเฟือยต่างๆก็คือตอนช่วงระยะอยู่บ้านเฮาก็จะได้มีการปลูกผักกินเองจังซี่เฮาก็มีการประหยัดไปอีกขั้นนึงเฮ็ดให้เฮารู้จักการช่วยเหลือเพื่อนมนุษย์ด้วยกันอันใดที่ว่าเฮาลำบากเฮาก็ช่วยเหลือกันในยามจำเป็นเนาะอันนี้ก็เป็นสิ่งที่สำคัญแล้วก็อยากให้ทุกคนที่ว่าพบวิกฤตแนวนี้ก็บ่ต้องท้อถอยก็ให้พากันสู้ซนต่อไปแล้วก็สิ่งสำคัญก็เฮาควรปกป้องตัวเองในพยาธินี้ก็คือมันล้างมือใส่สบู่หรือว่าเจลล้างมือเนาะเวลาออกไปข้างนอกก็มีการใส่แมสปิดปากและการหลีกเลี่ยงการอยู่ร่วมกันที่แออัดอันนี้ก็เป็นสิ่งที่สำคัญแล้วก็อยากให้ทุกคนที่ว่าช่วงนี้โควิดมันก็ผ่านไปแล้วเนาะก็อยากให้ทุกคนอย่าประมาทต่อพยาธินี้เพราะเฮาบ่ฮู้ว่ามันจะเกิดขึ้นอีกในมื้อใดก็ขอให้ทุกคนขอบใจ
Thank you, Mr. Fong. Now that we have listened to our young people's stories, let's now watch the story of a residential caregiver from Cambodia of how the pandemic has affected them. As much as we would like to them here speaking live, we are afraid their internet connection may be not stable or unstable enough for them to join in. So let's watch the video.
សួរខ្ញុំហួសហើយរ៉េតសពធ្វើការនៅអង្គការខផ្នែកថែទាំកុមារវាមានកូវីដនេះមកហើយមានប៉ះពាល់ខ្លះដល់កុមារប៉ះពាល់ខាងកុមារគាត់អត់បានទៅរៀននៅសាលាគាត់បានទៅយកឯកសារពីសាលាមកធ្វើនៅផ្ទះខ្លះទៀតគាត់រៀនតាមអនឡាញអញ្ចឹងខ្ញុំការពារពាក់ម៉ាស់មានចែលលាងដៃការពារមកវិញលាងសាប៊ូលាងចែលមានពាក់ម៉ាស់ពាក់អីចឹងទៅយើងប្រាប់កុមារនៅទីនេះឲ្យគាត់មួយទឹកសម្អាតខ្លួនអាសាលាងដៃនឹងសាប៊ូចែលដូចថាបោកកម្រាពូកខ្នើយមួយអាទិត្យបោកម្ដងកម្រាពូកមួយអាទិត្យ50ម្ដងការងារសិក្សារបស់គាត់គាត់បានទៅរៀននៅក្រៅតែគាត់បានរៀននៅទីនេះតាមអនឡាញទៅយកឯកសារពីសាលាក្មេងខ្លះរៀនតាមអនឡាញអញ្ចឹងទៅយកឯកសារទៅឲ្យគ្រូនៅសាលាគាត់ធ្វើសួនដាំបន្លែដូចជាជំនះស្មៅជំនះអីតាមសម្អាតតាមអគារយើងនៅក្នុងអង្គការ
Indeed, some of the greatly affected by this pandemic are the children and their families, especially those in alternative care settings. Now, we'll be talking about responses to these identified impact. We have here with us representatives from governments and civil society organizations to discuss their good practices and lessons learned in managing the impact of COVID-19. To start with, a young lady from a residential care facility in Cambodia would like to share with us how a group of children conducted a rapid assessment to gauge the impact of the COVID-19 crisis on children, including those in alternative care settings, and recommended actions based on their findings. Everyone, let us all welcome Ms. Liang Morokot, the president of the National Child Advocate Network in Cambodia.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Morokot, and I'm the president of Child Advocate Network from Cambodia. So let me just share with you the rapid assessment we have done in Cambodia with and from the children and young people. 239 children and young people around the age of 10 to 17 from Phnom Penh and 15 other provinces have been reached out for this. 9% of which came from alternative care setting. Next slide, please. And the objective of our studies are to amplify the voices of children and youth, enhance understanding of our stakeholders on the needs of children and youth, and to promote government and civil society accountability. Next slide, please. Yes, and as I mentioned, this study is a child-led one. It is us, children and young people, who develop the questionnaires, did the capacity building, the data collections, as well as validations. You can see on the photo how we did this together. So yeah, you can see the photos in the slide. And next slide, please. What we have found out is similar with what has been presented by my fellow child and young people in the previous part. Our children and young people's education, livelihood, health including mental health, have been greatly affected by the pandemic. But one also interesting finding had emerged. Many of our participants would like to take part in COVID-19 responses in our communities. We want to contribute through awareness raising activities as well as provide support to our peers to learn better at home. Next slide, please. And this is our recommendation, and it is very important. Based on our finding, we came up with 3 major recommendations. First, government and NGO should provide support for home distance learning. It includes providing support to vulnerable children, teachers conducting home visits, and reopening school when it is safe and with provision of studies materials. Second, provide support on livelihood improvement. Provide food or cash to most vulnerable children, poor students, and unemployed people, and conduct home visits to vulnerable families. And third, provide protection from COVID-19 through dissemination of truthful information. This should reach out to those in rural areas and those in alternative care setting too, especially those without access to the internet. And lastly, distribute PPEs like masks and soaps. And that's my presentation for today. Hope my fellow children and youth will also be inspired to lead initiatives like this one too in their own countries. And we also call our government and civil society groups to provide more opportunities and support us in all our undertakings so we can find and strengthen our voices. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morokot. I hope this inspires our children and young people here to continue raising their voices and participate in the discussions involving their rights. Also for all of us here to provide opportunities and continue empowering them to claim their rights even in a time of a pandemic. Oh, I am happy to convey that the Vice President of SOS Children's Villages International has joined our forum, and she wishes to convey her warm regards to all of you who have taken the time to join with us today. Thank you very much, Dr. Gita Tronish. So moving on from child participation, now we would like to hear more about the initiatives taken by the Step Ahead Foundation in Thailand. The speaker, Ms. Pusas Rivelas, has been an advocate of alternative care, trauma-informed care, child protection, and social service workforce development for Child's Rights Coalition Thailand since 2018, and has provided technical assistance for years to government, civil society organizations, and scholars. Everyone, let us all welcome Ms. Pusa from Thailand.
Good afternoon, everyone. Especially to those young care advocates, I'm so happy and so excited to be here with you. I'm Pusadat from the Step Ahead Foundation and a part of the National CSO Group, CRC Coalition Thailand. And we have around 48 member organizations who believe that the family is the best place for children. Next slide, please. Thanks to the SOS Children's Village for allowing me this opportunity to share how we could deal with the alternative care in COVID-19 crisis. If you could remember that in January, Thailand was the first country outside China that was hit by this pandemic. And we have around over 3,000 infected cases in 58 days since then. The government took the strong measures by issuing the country lockdown, border closures, ban on the social gathering, and kept social distancing, closures the schools and childcare facilities, and that really hurt the children and families. Next slide, please. And we do hear the voice from the children, and we witness a number of the rising call reporting about the domestic violence, sexual violence, people commit suicide, stigmatization towards the infected persons. And from a field rapid assessment that we conduct with the children and youth, and we learn that they feel stressed and they are confused as the same as their parents. Next slide, please. And without a proper preparedness and risk communication, the pandemic hits the whole system of the supporting environment around children. And from the alternative care responses, and we encounter many challenges in identifying preventive measures, ability to access the interim care, preparation for child protection workers, and no child care labor program were well addressed. Next slide, please. Lucky that we have the community-led response and based on our protective factors, which contribute a lot in mitigating the consequence in the different way. The first one, if you look at from the slide, that we borrow a good idea from somewhere and we use our mutual aid by setting up the community food pantry in the public place, so the richer can help the poor and the poorer can reach to the food with no stigma. And we recognize that the civil society organizations are still as the frontline workers who reach out to the most vulnerable children, such as migrant children, refugees, asylum seekers, children in the street situation, and children with disability. And while our existing mental health, the community health volunteer, who have been working hard with the Ministry of Public Health, conveying the safety message, hand over the PPE to the villagers and children, and help for the early detection of the infected person. And then we have also developed the social service workforce, and then I would like to mention it later. Next slide, please. And then how do we respond in terms of their alternative care? And could you go back to the previous slide? Sorry. Okay. Next slides. Next slides, please. Okay, this one. We implement a wide range of the emergency response. Such a measure include the COVID-19 response manuals were developed by the Department of Children and Youth with support from UNICEF. We have the manual for shelters, for schools and community. The government provide cash assistance around $150 for 3 months to those affected by the virus. And then they just approved the top-up funding on the child support grant, disability grant, old age allowance, and the state welfare card. And concerning the kinship care and foster care services, luckily that we have been working closely with the government. And this year, actually, that we are in the process of launching the revised foster care model in 5 piloting provinces. And we are adapting their standards of care and report on the alternative care review by using the tracking progress tool. And then it was a perfect timing to remind the importance of having sufficient family-based care program to serve the foreseen increasing demand of this service. And then DCY is now in the discussion on the adjusting the financial support for caregivers and take the further step in recruiting more 80 new foster families during the crisis. Could I go back to the previous slide, please? Thank you. I would like to share with you today that on the social service workforce development, which is the focus of our part in the past 6 months. And we recognize that at the beginning that we know very little about how to deal with the COVID, which is impact on our life. And we don't know what best that we can do. And thanks to the Joint Ad Hoc scheme initiated by the social worker from the field hospital in coordination with other professional groups, academic institution, Ministry of Public Health, Ministry of the Social Development and Human Security to provide continuing support for 1,600 patients in returning home. And with the support of independent fund, the organization, the Thai Health Promotion Fund, we managed to set up the following service, create a mobile app for widening the opportunity for accessing the support service. We call all the 200 licensed social workers nationwide who commit to work on the voluntary basis on the remote case management. We did reskill a capacity building program by 4 online courses, hotline, the empowerment counseling, the CBT, the child protection response in the humanitarian action, of which our coalition group could facilitate the topics. We have the MHPSS, we have psychological first aid, we have self-care for caregivers, and for child protection, I managed to get the opportunity to share about the alternative care concerns and response. Next slide, please. We have learned that a lot from this during the crisis so far. I confirm that the information is the key to our success. Since the International Alliance on the Child Protection and Humanitarian Action shared its technical note, and we make sure that we get it translate, harmonize, and educate and communicate among us. And then on the alternative care that we think that we shall review, analyze, and identify and come up with the contingency plan. And then we shall allocate that is a key response for the upcoming relief period. And we need to learn how we could work with a community-based actor to ensure safety, well-being of children and family, and avoiding stigmatization as well as discrimination. Thailand still have a challenge in strengthening the family reunification caregiving program and promoting more engagement for our caregiver, which is the highlight in this forum. And I think that I need more support from Fong Lee, from Adi on this issue. So we need to learn from you, and we need more support resources. And then we are quite inexperienced in dealing with the COVID-19 because, and I think that in this forum, we can recommend for that we shall widening our network among us and among the ASEAN caregivers and the youth caregiver. So this is my presentation that I like to make today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma'am Pusa. That is very concise. Your organization's initiatives to protect and provide support to children, young people, and caregivers, and the communities are truly admirable, and something we hope other organizations and agencies can also follow. So children and families living in the streets are also one of the most affected by this pandemic. Without houses to stay in, it is difficult for them to isolate and protect themselves from falling ill. In some countries in Southeast Asia, this is a prevalent issue that needs addressing immediately. In the Philippines, the government is running several residential centers where street children can temporarily be placed to ensure their safety. To share with us how the Philippine government responded to protect this vulnerable group of children, here with us is Ms. Rosalie Dagulo, the Division Chief of the Center Development Division of the Department of Social Welfare and Development, or DSWD. DSWD is the executive department of the Philippine government responsible for the protection of the social welfare of the rights of Filipinos and the promotion of social development. Let us all welcome Ms. Sally.
Good afternoon, everyone. From the Philippines, this is Rosalie Dagulo, or Sally is my nickname. And I will be presenting to you a brief presentation of good practices and lessons learned in managing the COVID-19 crisis in relation to children in residential care facilities in the Philippines. So the first slide, this shows the good practices that we summarize into three. And number one is the formulation of contingency plan. So we required the residential care facilities for children managed by the Department of Social Welfare and Development to do their, each of them will be doing their own contingency plan, which contains the activities of each center and residential care facility, so that they will be addressing proactively the emergency challenges that may be affecting the lives of children in residential care. Number two, we issued a set of guidance notes on the protection, prevention, and safety of residents and the personnel at the DSWD residential care facilities regarding COVID-19. We issued this set of guidance notes on April 20, 2020, and this was routed to all of the field offices of the department nationwide. They were given this advisory so that they will be able to know, be guided on what to do, because first of all, this is a very novel experience, no, to all of us, not only in the Philippines, but worldwide. So they have to be guided on what to do regarding this emergency. The third, we do weekly monitoring of the status of operations on precautionary measures in residential care facilities. In the guidance notes, we advised all of the centers or the residential care facilities of the DSWD to submit to us at the central office weekly report, just a very brief report on their implementation, the status of operation, together with the challenges, so that we could address their problems, the gaps in operation, and link them to various sources or resources, both government and non-government. I have to emphasize that in the Philippines, we have the Department of Health, which is primarily spearheading all of the efforts of the Philippine government in addressing the challenges of COVID-19 at all levels of governance, and also engaging the local government units. So the next slide, this is just a summary of the guidance notes that I cited in the number 2 good practices. And one of the content of the guidance notes is the prevention and protection of all the people that are in the centers and residential care facilities of DSWD. Here, one of the requirements is for them to do a contingency plan, submit it to us so that we will be able to monitor their activities. They have specific advice that we gave to them, like designating a disinfecting area, observe the standard safety set by the Department of Health, and do the preventive measures so that the spread of the virus will be prevented, like proper and frequent hand washing, use of sanitizers, observe proper cough etiquette. We also require each of them to wear protective mask, face mask. We also advise them to avoid touching their face, their nose, and their mouth, to thoroughly cook their food, especially meat and eggs, and avoid unprotected contact with live wild or farm animals, and seek immediate medical attention when experiencing symptoms of respiratory illnesses like cough, colds, fever, or even with those with history of travel. It should be noted also that during the in the Philippines, there was an imposition of community quarantine at different levels, and during this time, we see to it that the residential care facilities are given medical advice or health advice, even if not with the presence, the physical presence or personal presence of medical officers. We link them or advise them to link with neighboring hospitals and clinics for telemedical or health advising. This is a very good practice here in the Philippines. So they got those links, and they got advices from doctors through that different platforms or media platforms. So we also have a medical team that is activated in each of the residential care facilities so that they will be able to monitor closely the symptoms and signs of each of the personnel and residents in our facilities. In terms of management of cases, we advise each of the facilities to continuously do case management or intervention. So it doesn't mean that if there were imposition of enhanced quarantine or enhanced community quarantine, they would be stopping from admitting clients. No, they were advised to continuously admit clients and do the interventions. However, as you could see in the second item, we advise the modification of programs and activities guided by the health protocols of the Department of Health. Because physical visits or personal visits, social distancing is encouraged. Therefore, some of the activities have to be modified. And we advise them to do some modifications in their programs of intervention.
Thank you,
Again,
Ma'am Sally. As
yes.
much as we want to extend more on the topic of this one, maybe we could answer questions during the Q&A so that we
Okay.
could, apologies for that. We would be sharing the presentation also to our participants after the forum. So
Thank
yes,
you.
thank you again, Ma'am Sally. Yes, we can do more to protect children living in the streets and those in residential centers. We are glad to hear the interventions being taken by the Philippine government to keep them safe and healthy. So now we will proceed to another good practice from Vietnam to share with us the policies and programs their government developed and implemented to protect their children. We have here Ms. Cao T. Tang Thuy, Ms. Due has more than 25 years of working experiences in child protection in Vietnam. She is one of the founders of ASEAN Commission on the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Women and Children, or ACWC, and has served as ACWC representative of Vietnam from 2010 to 2017. Let us all welcome Ms. Due. Ms. Due is with us. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm here already.
We can hear you now, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone, especially the children and young people. I'm very happy to be here with you and to share about the good practices and lessons learned in responding and managing the COVID-19 crisis in Vietnam. As you may know, now please, the first PowerPoint, please. Yeah. You may know that until today, the 28th of July, Vietnam has had 431 cases of COVID-19, with 365 people have been recovered, and until today, zero deaths total. In response to the COVID-19, the government of Vietnam has established a national steering committee headed by our Deputy Prime Minister to mobilize all militaries, all functional forces to respond properly to the COVID-19. And the government has spent a package of social securities of 62,000 billion Vietnam dong, equivalent to 2.7 billion US dollar, to support for more than 20 million people of 7 groups who are the most affected by COVID-19. And the government also planning to spend from 300 to 500 billion Vietnam dong from the social insurance fund for the affected people. And these funds are for the most affected people, including the social people at the social protection centers. And the government also requests all functional forces to enhance their awareness and be ready to respond to the new pandemic-related developments. These units include the health unit, the army, the force, the police, and also the social service providers. And as you may know from our ministries of labor, evangelist, and social affairs, the Molisa were also very active in the response and handling with the COVID-19. Molisa, together with the relevant agencies to develop the IEC materials to raise the awareness on child care and protections, as well as on the safe for children during the COVID-19. Molisa will also coordinate and facilitate the NGOs and service provider to promote the child care. Please, next slide, please. No, next. The second slide, please. Sorry, the second slide. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mount Wei. May I request the facilitator to please go to the second slide?
Yeah, back again to the second slide. And by the way, I will also send you an updated PowerPoint. This is the previous one. Hello? Yeah, we back again to the second slide. Can you hear me?
Please just continue with that slide.
Yes. The previous one, please.
Please go back to the previous slide. Thank you.
Yeah. And Molisa will also drafting the national scheme for development of the social to assist the facility system. And I think there is some mistake regarding to the PowerPoint.
Ms. Dway, kindly
Yeah.
proceed even without the slides.
It is not the right slide. Sorry. Yeah. By the way, you can understand that now our ICD we also prepare the materials to provide the communications to the those who are affected by the COVID-19. And until now, we also produce about 5,000 booklets to provide to the 400 quarantine facilities. And on the other hand, we also launch communication campaigns on childcare and protection on mass media, for example, on TV, radio, newspaper, on social mass media, and we also have the Blue Heart campaign, communication campaign through the TV, which also provides the enhancing for the awareness raising on the people, especially on the children who are affected by the COVID-19. And as I mentioned to you, we also publish and distribute 50,000 leaflets on safe for children to be distributed in foreign quarantine facilities. And we also have the Child Helpline 111 to provide the psychological counseling and emergency support to all of the people and of course to the parents and also the children and those who are most affected and need the support regarding to the safe for children. And you can understand that this year Vietnam is taking the ASEAN chairmanship, and on the 15th of April, on the 15th April, during the special ASEAN Plus 3 summit on COVID-19, the leaders also endorsed the joint statement on response to COVID-19. And in May, during the special meeting of ASEAN labor ministerials on response to impact of COVID-19, a joint statement of ASEAN labor and social ministers on response to the impact of COVID-19 has also been endorsed. And as you may know, that ASEAN during the ASEAN chairmanship, the ACWC Vietnam also taking a lot of activities among this, including the promotion of the implementation of the regional action plan on the elimination of violence against children. And we also promote the sustainable integration of ASEAN community by ensuring the legal status of regional women and children. And we also organize a workshop on the development of ACWC's working plan. And we also organize an ACWC special online meeting on protective and preventive measures for women and children at risk of domestic violence. And this is just very briefly about the best practices and lessons learned from the response of the government and also other relevant stakeholders in Vietnam in response to the COVID-19. And thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to more practices and lessons learned shared from the other colleges. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Ma'am Dway. We hope other organizations can also support the good practices from your country to protect children, especially those in alternative care. Also, a reminder for our speakers to please make sure that your presentations are concise. Don't worry, all updated presentations would be shared to our participants after the forum. Now that we have listened to the good practices from the Philippines and Vietnam, we would also like to hear from Indonesia. We have here Dr. Kanya Eka Santi. Dr. Kanya is the Director of Social Rehabilitation Directorate for Children, Indonesian Ministry of Social Affairs. Dr. Kanya?
Yes, good afternoon for everyone. Hello, can you hear my voice?
Good afternoon, Doctor. Please continue. We could hear you.
Yes, good afternoon. It's very nice to have you all here. And I would like to share about our program and our intervention to keep children in alternative care safe and healthy. And next slide, please. Next slide, please. So this is the phenomenon of COVID-19 in our society and the impact on children. There is a contagious fear. I call it contagious fear because it's really a contagion. So children might fear of the COVID-19 victim update, fear of everything, even a fear of rapid and swab tests, and also contagious grief. This grief also, in one side, children will learn empathy, but in another side, not really about with logical thing, because in some society they try to get the dead body of the COVID-19 confirmed COVID-19. So it's really dangerous actually for our society and also for the children. And when many adults infected by COVID-19, children also will be very vulnerable for this situation. You know, so trauma experienced by children during COVID-19 will also become our concern. Next slide, please. Now I'm going to share about childcare system in Indonesia. Next slide, please. This is the next, please. We can skip it because next, please. Next, please. So actually, during a pandemic situation, parents have a very important role. So, for example, because children have mixed feelings about coronavirus, so children need to talk with parents need to talk with children, and also children need very accurate information, so they will not really get stressed and depressed. And also parents have to be a model for the children in terms of implementing health protocol. Next, please. This is the care system in Indonesia because I'm going to talk about alternative care. So what I mean by alternative care in Indonesia is about foster care, guardianships, adoption, and residential care. Well, mainly I will talk about how we can respond to the children in residential care as well as for the foster care and adoption. Next, please. Next, please. I think we can skip this one. So yes, we can skip it. Yes, still skip it. So this is the program intervention for children in alternative care. We developed some programs and we categorize into several areas: policy, national program, social assistance, guideline, socializations, basic needs support, as well as contact center. Next, please. This is the example of the policy of the Director General of Social Rehabilitation that we share to all healthcare institutions, so they will understand the dangers of this virus. And next, please. And also we establishing protocol in collaboration with Ministry of Women Empowerment and Child Protection. The title of the protocol is quite long. So this is the title of the protocol, Child Caring Protocol for Children, etc. Why we are doing so? Because we understand that so many parents are infected, and also so many children are lost their parents, and so many children are infected as well. So we need to make sure that these children are in good care. Next, please. This is the implementer. I think we can skip it. And another is also, we can skip it. And this is the national program. This is national programs that implemented before the COVID-19. So for example, family help program, non-cash food assistance for family, regular program. But since there is a COVID-19, this program is double. So the target is double. And also we add another program, namely basic needs assistance for family and cash transfer for very poor families, and also social rehabilitation assistance in case kind and psychosocial support. Next, please. This is another example of a family help program, the target, and we can carry on. Next, please. This is also, we also have collaboration with UNICEF, and with UNICEF from the second week we developed some program. So I can say that we distribute the hygiene kit and recreational kit, and also we circulate the COVID-19 prevention handbook, and also we also deliver Directorate General Social Rehabilitation instruction about child protection for all child care institutions, guideline for social worker, because our social workers still go to the field during the COVID-19, and also guideline to protect children from COVID-19 in social rehabilitation center, child welfare institution, and other child care institution, because this is very important. And also we deliver a module about clean and healthy behavior, and the prevention module for neglect, exploitation, abuse, and violence against children, as we understand that the risk for abuse, neglect, exploitation for children during pandemic COVID-19 is also very high. Next, please. This is an example of guideline for social workers, how they can work in the field during COVID-19 pandemic. And next, please.
Thank you for this, Dr. Kanya. Maybe we could wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Doctor. These presentations would be shared to the participants, and if they have questions, they could also put their questions in the Q&A box here. Now that we have discussed how governments and organizations responded and managed the pandemic, especially to protect those in alternative care setting, we will now proceed to our next and last agenda item, the moving forward part. To discuss what new normal would look like for alternative care, here with us is Ms. Paz de Guzman from the Philippines. Ms. Pazzi is the co-founder and executive director of the Parenting Foundation of the Philippines. From 2006 to 2016, she has become the chairperson of the Committee of Family and Alternative Parental Care, one of the 4 structures of the Council. For the Welfare of Children, the Philippines Apex Agency for Policy on Children. She is a former president of the Association of Child Care Agencies in the Philippines, a nationwide network of 55 licensed and accredited child care and placing agencies in the country. Everyone, let us all welcome Ms. Pazzi.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we could hear you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for inviting me to this webinar. And before I proceed, I'd like to congratulate the organizers of this virtual meeting, Elaine in particular, and also to SOS Philippines, because it's great to know that SOS Philippines is seriously developing kinship care. After 150 days of community quarantine, I still do not see the light shining on the road back to the way we were before the pandemic. Instead, I see another road, which I will share with this group towards the latter part of this paper. In early June this year, our little non-government organization, Parenting Foundation, along with 3 other non-government agencies, CRIBS, KBF, Norphil, all implementing foster care, held a virtual meeting. We only had 2 items on the agenda. First was how to suggest, gently but seriously, to the Department of Social Welfare and Development, our common concern, which was for DSWD to designate or identify and equip a facility, one each in the north and another one in the south of Metro Manila, where any foster child who becomes infected with COVID-19 may be housed and nursed back to health without becoming an additional burden and a possible statistic within the continuously increasingly overwhelmed hospital system because of the COVID. The second item on our agenda was we were concerned about being able to continue with our foster care program. This was particularly pressing for us in Parenting Foundation because we had 3 previously rescued children victims of online sexual exploitation who were awaiting transfer to a licensed foster family. The family was ready, but because of a lack of existing protocols in the midst of the pandemic, the delays had to happen. In addition, there were 5 other cases that still were waiting to be assessed or discussed via a multidisciplinary case conference to determine their needs and where and how to place them. So since this community quarantine has never happened before, we needed to put in place immediately some guidelines before any transfer could be effected. So it was quickly agreed that testing for COVID-19 of any child prior to transfer is a must. And of course, it also happened that these kids were already somewhat quarantined in a way because they were staying already in a child caring facility. And that is exactly what we did. So the testing went on and these children are now placed in foster care. So as we look into the future of this virus, staying on for at least a few more years, and the likelihood that other viral and or bacterial contagions that may affect our foster families, we really welcome an opportunity such as this to share experiences and look for creative ideas of how best to better prepare and serve our children and their foster families. So keeping in mind what we all have been through these past 4 months or so, and thinking about preparing foster children and foster families to cope with the physical, mental, and socio-psychological impacts of this contagion and possibly anything in the future, I would like to share the following suggestions. Number one, foster care can be of help to decongest 24/7 child care facilities and other custodial care centers. And therefore, this can be readily done by recruiting more foster families as slowly beginning to ease up, as the virus is slowly beginning to ease up. We will therefore need everybody's help, the SWD and other NGOs implementing foster care, to cooperate in order to implement the Republic Act 10165, also known as the Foster Care Act of 2012. Number two, we can also prepare and include in the orientation and continuing training of foster families the simplest basic hygiene, such as frequent hand washing, as well as the proper use of, again, personal protective equipments at home and in the community at large. This training should include and must include how to prepare healthy nourishment that can be sourced from the local garden or market, and perhaps even from one's own backyard. Therefore, a supply of seeds from the Bureau of Plant Industry should probably be accessed. Number three, when an epidemic breaks out, even before it becomes a pandemic, we should identify and pre-inform nearby testing facilities about foster parents or foster families who may have to access their services or testing or vaccination services on behalf of their foster children. Number four, provide guidelines when and how to access or activate a predetermined funding source and other ancillary resources or services, such as virtual consultations with social workers and other helping professionals. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Patsy. Indeed, we have to evaluate the emerging needs of our children and identify ways to respond to them effectively. To discuss with us about sustainable plans and public policies to address issues related to alternative care, we have invited Ms. Yuyum F. Pariani from Indonesia. Ms. Yuyum is currently the Indonesia's representative to the ASEAN Commission on the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Women and Children for Children's Rights. She has also been an independent emergency specialist and consultant for child protection for years. Welcome to our forum, Ms. Yuyum.
Thank you so much. I think I'm the last. Firstly, I would like to say thank you for the SOS Children Village for inviting me as a speaker in the webinar. I think this is a special case how we can pay concern for the children issues in the alternative care. And as we know, the children living in kinship caregiver, maybe in institution, maybe in shelter, orphanage, detention, residential house, they have a lot of challenges during the COVID itself. I would like to update and compile from the policy from the ASEAN member state regarding with the issue how they can prevent and respond during the COVID in pandemic in ASEAN. That's my presentation. Please see the first slide. This is only the number of cases, but Indonesia is not the update one because now Indonesia is more than 100,000. We are on the top, and the lowest is Laos because Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam, no people die, but the other still have it. and the Singapore now they face the second wave of the COVID. But Indonesia is still continuing. But I hope we can going down. Next slide, please. Okay, I just get the number from impact on the children on the get the positive COVID in Indonesia as of 15th of June 2020, whereas we got the 2,712 children positive and 51 children was die. This is a data from the Indonesian Pediatrician Association. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the impact. I think the previous presenter already mentioned much about the impact on the children, and the sum of this also the same. But I would like to highlight about the increase the number of women and children facing violence. I think among ASEAN countries, they facing violence among women and children. And then the other things about the cyber violence and the easy access for the children also to visit the pornography website, because in the other side the website from the pornography also they open the easy access for the people to visit it. That's another side of the cyber violence and the pornography happens. And already mentioned also about the school distancing learning, and some of school is closure and then means demand or caregiver. And caregiver and parents feel difficult to support or assist the children learning at home because they have a double activities at home. First, maybe they have a earning money. They should focus on the daily activity for the domestic things, and then should support the children during the learning at home.
Ma'am Yu. I think we are having technical difficulties with Ma'am Yu. Hello, Ma'am Yu.
Okay.
I think you are muted.
Again? Okay. Please.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next slide. Okay. In another care, I asked the two. One is residential house for like orphanage house, and then the other is what is wait. Okay. And the others is the temporary shelter. They have different response during the COVID. One of the I said this is the established the residential care or orphanage care. There know the safeguarding policy. They using their protocol, and they look like the lockdown the orphanage houses because they want to keep it the children safe inside. They not allow the people from outside coming. But the temporary shelter is not too strong for their support for the donor and also the knowledge of the child protection. They are very danger for the children living or going in that place. I think this is also have influence for the knowledge of their caregiver, knowledge of the management in that houses. And then limited access, get the financial support in alternative care, already mentioned before. And for the distant learning, some of them the alternative care for example for the temporary shelter, they didn't have the mobile phone, no computer, no money to buy the internet quota. And then I'm very sad. I know the children in the street situation. they they actually I would say they don't much care about the COVID because they want to focus to earn money in the street, and they don't follow the protocol, and yes, just look like usually they didn't care actually, including their parents. That's another challenges in the future. Next slide please. Next slide. Okay. Okay, this is the response by Indonesia government. I think some of them is already mentioned by Ibu Kanya about the the responsibility by the governments. Indonesia implement the policy of refocusing activities and reallocation budget to accelerate the handling the COVID with the flow of the IAC material in every social media, television, leaflet, and everything. We can found in many places information about the COVID. And then we try to recommend to the COVID protocol and strategies that focus on the gender responsive, child friendly, and the best interest of child. Next slide, please.
Okay.
Next slide. Okay. Next slide. Okay. This is the number of the protocol regarding with the women and children. We under the women empowerment and child protection. I think Indonesia developed much on the protocol and the guidance. And during this protocol and guidance, also in the last, we also have we call it the PATBM. This is the program engage the community, how also the community carrying out and handling and respond for the COVID in their village level. Next slide, please.
Ma'am Yuyum.
Yes.
Sorry to cut you, but we have to also entertain to other speakers. This slide would be shared to participants.
Okay.
So,
But
and if they have questions,
can I saw the last slide from the
okay,
ASEAN
okay.
side? The
Yes,
ASEAN
please.
side. Okay, next.
Thank
next.
you.
Next. Next, the ASEAN slide. The last. I think this is important. Whereas the ASEAN have the special declaration of the special ASEAN summit on the coronavirus, and also joint statement the ASEAN ministerial meeting, how to mitigate impact COVID on vulnerable group in ASEAN. This the ASEAN doing during the COVID, and I hope the ASEAN members can follow it the declaration in their own state. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma'am Yuyum, for sharing us your country's plan to address the impact of COVID-19, especially for those who would need to be placed in alternative care settings. Now, Mr. Nguyen Kong Hieu from Vietnam would also share with us their sustainable plans to address the impact of COVID-19 on children and youth and caregivers, especially in ensuring that they reach out to them amidst the pandemic. So Mr. Hieu is currently the Deputy Director of Communication and Counseling Center in charge of Helpline Vietnam. Mr. Hieu manages all the activities of the Helpline 111 and counseling services for children who are in need of assistance and emergency intervention, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. He is involved in the development of policies and services for children in special circumstances. Over to you, Mr. Hieu.
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Very nice to join with the conference. How are you? Yeah. Firstly, I don't introduce about myself anymore. Now I talk about the Child Helpline Vietnam 111. The Child Helpline Vietnam 111. We have the one office in head office in Hanoi capital, and to the field office in the middle and in the south. We also to have the 25 the counselor, and for the manager, we work 24 hour per day in 7 days per week. Yeah, from the January to now in the first quarter 2020. We also to receive the receive the more than 21,000 call in that. We have the psychology and the policy counseling is more than the 8,500 the call and intervention. We also to have the 181 case intervention for the children, includes the violence against the children, sexual abuse, child labor, and child conflict with the law and child trafficking. In the 15 days of the social distancing from the 1st to the 15th of April, we received the 744 phone call from the children. It has 21 cases as treat, includes 5 cases of the sexual abuse, 8 cases from the violent, and 4 cases from the neglect children. In the 9 cases of sexual abuse, it has the case relate the online environment. From the in the second quarter, from the May to the July, we received so many call, because at that time the call we received is not only the children matter. It also to have the other call for the government support the package for the people impacted by the COVID pandemic. So that's why the call is increased very higher. However, during the time from the May to the July, in the counseling for the children and the parents, we also to have the more than 5,000 call in that time. About the intervention case, we also to have the 133 cases. Some challenge during the time, the number of the call, the request for the have the receipt the increase, the call from the neglect children, and the often also the increase 5.6%. The case of the depression and stress also increased. We think is the impact by the social distancing about the COVID pandemic. In the coming month, we also to develop the awareness rising about the impact of the COVID pandemic on the children. We also provide information about the service of the child helpline 111 to the caregiver, teacher, and children in alternative care. We also promote caregiver and the children to use the app 111 to report or the request for the help, and also have the broadcast child care on national television, radio, and mass media. And also we refer the case to the service provider like the social protection and social work center in whole country. Yeah. Now I think the time is very limited, and so to share you some information about the Child Helpline Vietnam 111. If you have any, if you need know any more information about our helpline activity, please to send the information to me by the chat or some other channel. Thank you very much for to hear me.
Thank you, Mr. Hugh. Yes, we can have the materials. Also, we can share your contact if you wish that, if our participants wish to get your contact. So yes, child helplines play a critical role in protecting children and young people. Again, thank you, Mr. Hugh. Aside from the declaration, let me also share with you the user-friendly version of the 2019 UN resolution on the rights of children, focusing on children without parental care, developed by SOS Children's Villages, and it is now available and can be downloaded on the folder we are going to share with you. So we are also posting the link in the chat box. We encourage everyone to read it to learn more about alternative care for children. Now, I give the floor to Ms. Shaturi Jayasuriya, the SOS Children's Villages International Advocacy Advisor for Asia, to facilitate the Q&A session.
So greetings to all of your colleagues and our children and young people present here with us today. Hope you are all enjoying the forum so far. So let me first of all thank our speakers for your very informative presentations and for making them so concise, and deepest apologies for having to request you to wrap up a little bit ahead of time before you completed the presentations, some of you, but I hope you understand the time constraints. But of course, we will facilitate great engagement between the speakers and the audience later on as well. So first, let me recap very, very briefly. First, we heard from our children, caregivers, and a caregiver about the challenges that they're facing during the current pandemic. Basically, the impact. So here I should emphasize the fact that our effort was to show the pandemic, how the pandemic is affecting children and youth across the care continuum, from family-based to family-like to residential care. Then in the second segment, our speakers from the governments and civil society presented on how they're responding to these challenges to mitigate the situation. So here we focused more on the good practices and lessons learned mostly, so that it would be more useful for other practitioners and organizations as well. However, it was very encouraging in particular to see the many efforts taken across the region to involve children and youth in COVID-related research as well as responses. But of course, there were some prominent gaps also in terms of how we are responding to the issues of caregivers and of children with disabilities in alternative care. So finally, we were also able to get an overall idea about what kind of policies, programs, and plans that are still required to strengthen these interventions and address the remaining gaps. So along these lines, I would like to direct some questions to our panelists. And there are some important questions posed by audience as well, which have already been responded to by the relevant speakers. So the first question I would like to direct to you, Ms. Yuyum Pariani. So UNICEF estimates that there are approximately 140 million children without parental care across the world. And according to SOS Children's Villages, 1 in every 10 children worldwide has already lost parental care or are at the risk of being separated from their biological families. And the numbers of this at-risk group in particular seem to be increasing rapidly due to the current pandemic. However, compared to issues such as violence against children, children with disabilities, or HIV/AIDS, the alternative care of children has received much less attention and resource allocation in the past. So it's not a global or a regional priority, unfortunately. And we heard from some panelists too that alternative care or child care, broadly speaking, is still not a priority, despite the exacerbating impact of this pandemic on this issue. So I would like to ask you, especially as a representative of an intergovernmental body, how can the governments in the ASEAN region make this a priority right now? Because right now seems to be a very good moment and opportunity.
Okay, thank you so much for the ask me about the ASEAN. Actually, we are in the same line to thinking what the ASEAN will do during the COVID. Actually, if ASEAN very committed with the COVID situation and the pandemic, that's why they developed the declaration, the two declarations related with the COVID. First is the broadly about the health, mostly in the health and the business and the view of the education. But after that, continuing with their what we call the joint statement, the social protection. This is sometimes under the SOMSWAT, under the Minister of Social Welfare, and they developed the special response and response from the COVID-19, especially for the vulnerable children group. Actually, if the children living in the alternative care, this is part of the vulnerable group. And also, they may, from my side, I think this is the double impact for the life during the daily activities plus the pandemic, the very difficult situation. But after the ASEAN developed the, I think ASEAN member states developed so many of their policy to protect their women and children, especially for the vulnerable group, by their own situation. For example, I'm very appreciate like Myanmar countries. They also respond for the children living in the camps. We know the camps, the Rakhine state also have every issues for the children in there, but they pay attention, and they said this is the IDPs, not refugees. That's I'm very happy with the contact of the children IDPs in the Myanmar. But after ASEAN developed the joint statement and the declaration, but actually this is not legally binding. That the always the what is the issues come up in ASEAN. If they're not legally binding, this is depend on the countries can follow it or not. But I believe during the COVID, all of the ASEAN member states developed the something policy and regulation how they can protect children and women in their own countries. I think now also they focus on the children living in alternative care. For example, in Thailand also, they're more focused on the children in alternative care, and the others countries also. We're trying to see the every level of the vulnerable group in ASEAN. But I hope next I can update about what the activities or what the response from the ASEAN as the whole in ASEAN to respond for the children issues. And also we collaborate with the UNICEF, with the UNHCR. I think many of the UN agency also, and the NGOs in ASEAN level also be part of our partner in future to protect the children especially, and including the women. I think that's my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Yung, for your response. And we do look forward to some encouraging updates from you, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, alternative care, yeah. So next, I would like to turn to Dr. Kanya. So there is one question from Shivani Bardwaj from, I think, Sati All for Partnerships India. I hope I got the name correct. So she's asking a question in regard to youth living care. So youth living care have felt marooned world over for the want of one-on-one support. Caregiver organizations were gathering less support than agencies that brought them up. How can we bridge this gap in post-COVID time? So actually, these issues related to caregivers even before COVID times and during and in the aftermath of the pandemic is one area that has not yet received sufficient attention, and even within youth policies and programs of either the government or civil society, you know, compared to you know, the aspects of alternative care. So there is also this lack of training for caregivers or care professionals that we have observed. So Dr. Kanya, what can the governments do together with civil society partners to find solutions to the issues of caregivers and also make it a very empowering process for them? Because we saw this very interesting declaration, you know, with the recommendations that they have come up with. So how can we support this declaration, for instance?
Thank you. For the caregivers and some policies on on these matters. Indonesia, for example, MOSA, Ministry of Social Affairs, because we also experience some kind of problems, and we try to actually to reach them because we have many social workers in the field, and also we try to work closely with other NGO. I mean, not only childcare institution or childcare NGO, but also with other NGO who can connect it to society. So, for example, in Jakarta, there are almost more than 18,000 who already served by us. Because some of them are left the care. Left the care, whether the care from alternative care as well as left care from the family to the street, for example, because they don't know how to how can eat, how can get earn money for life, as COVID-19 is spread out in Jakarta, for example. So our policy is how to help neglected children mainly and other neglected people. That include who left the childcare institution. We try to trace, especially because we are very worried if they left the care but not return back to the family. So it's important for us. So we ask the social workers to try to work in the street and in the field during this is very bad situation, and try to find them. And because also this is important in policy level, we try to connect this practice into the policy level, so we can develop some partnership between government, especially central government and local government, and as well as community. So these three parties can work together to work with children who can also who experience something that's really bad when they left the care.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Kanya, for your thoughts. And yes, it is definitely important that we work in partnership with each other. So actually, there are some more important questions, but I'm afraid the time has come for us to end this discussion for today. But as I already mentioned, we will respond to the questions, the remaining questions as soon as possible, especially if we have left us with your email IDs. And we will also try our best to reach out to as many of you as possible to discuss the way forward, because this is definitely something that needs to be done as a collective. So on behalf of SOS Children's Villages, I would like to extend our sincere appreciation and gratitude to Ms. Yuyung Farhani Pariani, Indonesia's representative to the ASEAN Commission on the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Women and Children, Dr. Kanya Ekasanti, Director of Social Rehabilitation, Directorate for Children of Indonesian Ministry of Social Affairs, Ms. Rosali Dagulo, Chief of Center Development Division of the Department of Social Welfare and Development in the Philippines, Ms. Kao Thi Tan Tui, the Deputy Director of the International Cooperation Department of the Ministry of Labor, Invalids and Social Affairs in Vietnam, Mr. Nguyen Kong Hiu, Deputy Director of Child Helpline Vietnam of the Department of Child Affairs, Ms. Shubha Murthy, Deputy COO and International Director Asia of SOS Children's Villages International, Ms. Maria Paz de Guzman, co-founder and executive director of the Parenting Foundation of the Philippines, Ms. Pusa Srivilas, the Director of Alternative Care Initiatives of Step Ahead Foundation in Thailand, Ms. Liang Morokot, President of the National Child Advocate Network in Cambodia, Mr. Adi Sumena from SOS Indonesia, Mr. Lee Hong Fong from SOS Vietnam, Ms. Chintala Kochio Papao from SOS Laos, and thank you to SOS Philippines for leading and hosting this event, and SOS member associations in Indonesia, Laos, Thailand, and Vietnam for co-facilitating. And thank you very much for those of you who took the time to join us today and for your great interest and engagement. So may I request you to stay back for just 5 more minutes to enjoy this very brief 3-minute video and for some final announcements. And thank you very much and have a peaceful rest of the day. Thank you.
Every child needs someone to care for them, to protect them when they're small, and guide them as they grow and develop. But 1 in 10 children worldwide grows up alone, without someone to look out for them. Neglect, abuse, abandonment, or separation from their families is a daily reality, even in your own neighborhood. SOS Children's Villages is there for these children. We directly support over 1 million children, young people, and families to restore and build the relationships they need. We tackle a global issue on a local level. In over 130 countries and territories, our work is adapted to local customs and environments, and is part of the wider community. A caring, supportive family is crucial for a child's well-being. But families are at risk of falling apart when parents experience hardship. Like a father who was struggling to raise his son by himself. After a tough time followed by separation, he received support through parenting workshops and counseling. This helped them stay together. With strong families, whole communities prosper. Only when children cannot get the support they need from parents, alternatives are offered. Whether in one of our children's villages, in a foster family, or in a youth house, the focus is always on the unique needs of each child. One child may need warmth and affection, and another thrives best with an extra boost of confidence. When the best place for a child is back with their family, and the time is right, they're reunited. Every child has a right to quality care and protection. SOS Children's Villages works with partners and caregivers to defend and promote these rights. Children and young people are empowered to speak out and participate in decisions that affect their lives. Growing up is always a challenge. The people we support are not alone on their path to independence. Local companies and global businesses team up with us to provide internships and mentoring for young people. They get the skills and build the networks they need to find employment and contribute to society. With donors and partners, we make a difference. Together, we lay the foundations for a brighter future. Families build bonds that last a lifetime. Young people have the relationships they need to become confident adults. Children become their strongest selves. Together, we will continue to make this a reality.
We have come to the end of the program. We would like to thank everyone for participating in this forum and those who are still with us until now. If you want to learn more about alternative care, please click the link in the chat box. The link, plus all the presentations from our speakers, would also be shared to you via email after the forum. Also, please answer the post-event survey. This link is also in the chat box. Thank you very much and stay safe, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you.